Die, monster! You don't belong in this world!
It was not by my hand that I'm once again given flesh. I was called here by humans who wish to pay me tribute.
Tribute? You steal men's souls and make them your slaves!
Perhaps the same could be said of all religions.
Your words are as empty as your soul. Mankind ill needs a savior such as you.
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. Have at you!
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Marvel at the Movies with Doug and Kyle. If you can't see it up on the screen, my name is Doug. And if you've never seen our show, we have Kyle here, too. Kyle, how you doing? And actually, I should actually call you Kyle. Is that what it is?
Kyle, my Kryptonian name. You know, I just have to really represent the House of L. You know,
right. It's the Superman thing. There you go. That's why we call ourselves Marvel at the Movies. And I'm wearing my my Korg shirt. So, you know, we're pretty much all set for this episode, which I'm very excited about. And we are on a new platform. We're very excited about it. Would love for you to comment on the format, see if you like it. As you can see, I'm on vacation right now. No, I'm really not.
I am too. See,
yeah, you are too. See, yeah. The only issue is that I have this palm branch right over here. You know, it's kind of sticking in my head. But other than that, I'm doing pretty well. But tonight, we have a great show for you tonight. We are going to be talking about, because it's coming up on Halloween time. Halloween's going to be it will be Monday. We are going to be talking about some scary video games. Which is really, really cool. I'm going to give you a little, kind of a little bit of a background, and then we're going to talk about it. I would be amazed to see what kind of comments everybody has about the horror video games that people are out there playing, which is really great. I do want to say we have two sponsors. We have Simon Organizing. And we also have Wes Woodson. Those are our two sponsors for this particular show, and they've been our sponsors for a long time. Obviously, Simon Organizing, if you need something organized, we'll have descriptions we'll have information in the descriptions. There I go. And of both of those. But if you need something organized, please call Simon Organizing. Actually, she's got you better get on the bandwagon because she's got a gig this weekend. So, get on the bandwagon. It's fall cleaning time. It's time to clean everything up. And Wes Woodson, who's out there talking about his story, talking about anxiety, talking about he's got a book out. He's got maybe I shouldn't say this. He does have a second book that's coming out really soon, and he also has. He's recording in a studio. This is first time I'm saying this. Recording in a studio, his first book. So he is actually putting it out as a audio book very soon. So that should be really cool. And he goes around the country talking about anxiety, something that not too many people talk about, and it's really important that we talk about it. Really super important that we talk about it. So again, those are our two sponsors. And I'm just going to jump right in here, if you don't mind, Kyle. Is that all right if I just jump right in?
Jump on in. Here we go.
Yes. So as fans of good games, generally known generally know that in the early 2000s was really the time in which, games were kind of, they were cheap, that there was not a lot of production that went with them. It was really just a really fantastic time. For horror and adventure games, technology had rapidly jumped up a notch to a 32-bit era, which is huge, which is really huge because you have more memory, more space, more that kind of thing. Basically, games were still pretty cheap back then to make, and they weren't hundreds of millions of dollars, and they weren't much of a massive risk like they are today, because you have games out there, the horror games. I could mention a few, at least one. Resident Evil has a series of 8 different, I call them chapters. I guess you call them chapters. Got 8 different chapters.
Not even including the spin-offs. That has
right.
Also.
Exactly. See, Kyle, you know more than I do. So, but again, there's a lot of production value. There's a lot of money that goes along with some of these. But in the early 2000s, there wasn't a lot of money. Games were cheap. To make them wasn't expensive. So there wasn't a lot of risk that was attached to them. So all kinds of crazy ideas could still wind up on the store shelves. So crazy ideas could actually wind up there because they were cheap to make. It wasn't a big deal. Games were far less derivative of each other too, as they are now.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So the results that we get, high budget classics and mid-range games that had a lot of production value, that are what people call in the industry, and I found out this just by kind of YouTubing some of this stuff, it's basically like a crossbreed. Okay, the crossbreed is putting an adventure story with a horror story when it comes to video games, which, by the way, is not easy to do. Because typically there's people that love horror and they don't really want an adventure that goes along with it. And some people do. Some people think horror and adventure is really, really cool. What it used to be was, what it is now is action, adventure, power, freedom, and movement. Those are all the key words that people use in video games that is so prevalent today. Crossover survival horror. That is hugely popular today.
Yeah.
And they spend a lot of money on making sure, massive amounts of money on making sure that they can cross that over with each other. The horror games that you have to basically survive. You're in a room, you got to get out of the room. How do you do it? How do you get out? You have to go into another house. How do you do it? How do you get out of that house? Because there's a lot of stuff that you got to do to get out of it. One of the big examples of a mid-range game like I just talked about is called Eternal Darkness, which I will tell you right up front, I have not played, but I have seen it online. I have seen the gameplay. It looks amazing. And I'm just going to go over to Kyle, and what I wanted to ask is maybe give us an idea of what you think about what I just said. That would be the first question I have. And then the part A or B to that question is what are the games out there that you've played that you think are part of this, survival horror kind of situation? And do you like those games?
So to answer your first question, I completely agree with pretty much everything that guy said. I do agree that games back then did have more originality. And nowadays, they're definitely trying to find. You don't have as many straight up survival horror games, although I think they are making a bit of a comeback though in the indie gaming scene. So when you have more independent developers, they're the ones that actually take more risks and more just kind of they take more liberties with their games. And I think those games are the more fascinating ones, at least nowadays. Because back then there wasn't as big of an indie market, so it was more of the main developer, more the main big developer games like Capcom and EA Games that were making kind of a lot of those titles, and they were the ones that kind of, you're right, like stood out. And in the kind of the PlayStation 1 and 2 era, where they kind of made games that took more risks, and because it was still a fairly new environment, especially when it comes to 3D games like that. And that's, like you said, that's where horror games really excelled. There are a couple early examples like Clock Tower, like on the Super Nintendo, that kind of did the whole survival horror thing. But you're right, it didn't really come to fruition until like the PlayStation 1 era. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 2 era, there's a million games.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking like literally so many games that go along with PlayStation 2. And actually, the real hard gamers are really the ones who absolutely loved PlayStation 2 and probably still have their PlayStation 2. And that would be Kyle. So I don't. I had it for a little while and then obviously turned it in for 3 and then obviously 3 for 4 and working on 4 for 5. But it's one of those things where, yeah, that's basically, and I've come across the fact that you can't even play even a disc game without going online. I was just telling Kyle earlier that I had to go online to get the full action, the full sound and gameplay. I actually had to go online. I don't play online typically, but I had to go online to get what I needed, which was sound in a game and better gameplay. But now that I'm on, it's kind of neat. It's kind of cool. So that's kind of what it comes down to. Now I was telling the reason I was want to put together some background about this was because I had told Kyle up front when we had discussed having this kind of discussion, I had told Kyle that I'm kind of a sports guy when it comes to games. I like GTA. I like playing GTA. I do have both Xbox. I have Xbox One. I think so. It's the one with the thing that you don't have to use the I have the one with the controller, but it also has that viewer. So I don't.
Is it the Kinect are you talking about?
Yeah, Kinect. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So Xbox Kinect. Yeah, that's what I have.
Nice.
So yeah, you could tell I know so much about video games, but I'm but it's all right. I have it, but I haven't plugged into play. That was really for my daughter because she liked games like Dance Dance Revolution and those.
Oh yeah, that was my sister's favorite game growing up.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a great game for her. So I didn't really play on that as much as I played on the PlayStation. But I was telling Kyle, I don't typically get a lot of horror games. And to get ready for this episode, I actually did some research and I went out to YouTube and I did some gameplay of some of these titles. You had told me 3 titles that you typically play. And I just looked them up and I was like, oh, let me check out the gameplay for some of these games. And I looked at them, I was like, I'm missing a whole genre that looks really cool. And I'm like, why aren't I playing these games? So I'm going to start investigating more about that. But it's one of those things where, I mean, I guess what I should ask you is, what is your favorite? Do you have a favorite horror action survival game that you play? And if you don't, that's okay. You can name a couple of titles if you want to. But.
Well, I would say probably my favorite one, just because I've actually beaten this the most out of any survival horror game. I was always a big fan of Eternal Darkness for the GameCube, and so much so, where I'm hoping that they can re-release it on Switch because it is technically a Nintendo game, so maybe they can find a way to kind of get some really good HD graphics on that thing, or even just kind of do the Resident Evil thing, because they've remade the Resident Evil games too recently, 2 and 3, and just kind of like just make it from the ground up and have like even these new kind of like updated like controls and stuff like that, and new perspective, even like over the shoulder kind of perspective. I feel like they should do that. But yes, I love Eternal Darkness. I like it because it's very Lovecraftian. So if you are a big fan of like H.P. Lovecraft, like all of those types of horror novels, then I think you're going to really dig Eternal Darkness. And it's a game where the narrative is very fascinating because it starts off with kind of a typical, what seems to be a typical murder scene. Like, you're this girl named Alex Roivest who investigates the murder of a grandfather, and she goes to this like his big giant mansion in Rhode Island, and the cops think, oh, someone just killed him, whatever, it's just a murder kind of thing. It's just a typical murder, but she thinks that something more happened. And as you go through the game, you start off with her perspective, and what happens is she finds this book called The Tome of Eternal Darkness, and the second you get that, then weird things start happening. Very, very like, and you have to kind of figure out, okay, what are the cause of these things? What the hell is just going on in general? And what I love about it is the mansion is kind of this sort of semi-hub world initially. And you get to kind of explore the mansion, but there's certain areas that are locked. And as her, you don't really fight any of the monsters at the beginning of the game. What you do is actually you kind of like you sort of solve these puzzles and figure out these riddles and different secrets of the mansion. And every time you find these missing pages from the I can't say it, the Tome of Eternal Darkness. And every time you find a page, it's a level of the game, and it's a different time period, and you're a completely different character from that time period.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
it's so awesome.
Now, is she searching? If she goes into a room, can she like grab certain things that, like a hammer or a candle or a tool or something like that, to be able to maybe get into another room or be able to, kind of move on to the next either level or the next kind of thing?
100%. Yep. So what happens is it's cool because eventually your character learns how to do magic, and and as she's like, because since she's reading through those pages, as you're kind of like playing through those characters and those different timelines, it's essentially her reading what happened. And as those characters are like figure out magic spells, she ends up learning magic spells herself. So you actually kind of power her up as the game goes on. It's pretty cool.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good. Now, does she learn that from a book? Is there a book that she's... Oh, okay. So there's a book that she's
from that Eternal Darkness, the tome. Yeah. So she'll learn it from either like through any of the main story levels, or even from finding secrets in the house. So she never really leaves the house. She just kind of stays in the big mansion. But those characters kind of on their adventures, as she's reading the book, she can kind of like, she learns different types of spells, whether it's healing, whether it's like casting shields, or even summoning monsters. You can summon monsters. It's so cool.
That's awesome. I mean, again, I'm going to start, trying to see if I can, try to play some of these, because I think they're, as I watched the gameplay, it was hard to stop watching the gameplay.
Yeah.
It's hard to stop watching. It was like, oh my God, this is really cool. I was never really I'm into, certain horror movies, but I was never really into the gameplay once I started with, Nintendo and then Sega. And then I moved up from Sega. I moved up to PlayStation. So that's kind of my progression. But when I saw the gameplay, I was like, wow, this is kind of cool gameplay. I like this. This is kind of cool. So
Oh,
yeah.
it's fantastic, and actually, one of the things I forgot to mention, because there's a lot of really cool twists and turns throughout the game with different characters and storylines. But probably the most engaging feature of the game is your character has a sanity meter. So you have life, you have like a health bar, you have a magic bar, which can both obviously run out, like in a lot of other games. But you have a sanity meter where if you let that drop, like if she sees monsters, the monsters that your characters can see throughout the game can suck your sanity. So when that happens, the game pranks you. Like the game like brings out these like different visions to the point where now it ranges from like you can see some like blood on the wall. You see like mysterious ghost people running around. But then the game kind of ramps it up as it gets even lower. If you have like no sanity left, like you hear the TV like has these really creepy voices. It'll even pretend to actually like that the TV itself will turn off. It has a mode where it'll actually pretend to turn the whole game off or to bring the volume all the way down. Like it messes with your head, like to kind of like a meta level as well.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. I really have to start, kind of getting into some of these games.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Resident Evil just for a few minutes, and then
Of course, yeah.
and then we're gonna get into maybe one or two other things, and then Kyle and I have decided to really kind of format this show a little bit differently, and make sure that people get the best of the best out of Marvel at the movies. But what I want to do is just talk about Resident Evil. Kind of which ones have you played the whole series? Have you played just like 3 and 4 and then 8? Have you done that? And just a little bit about the gameplay.
So the ones I played the most were 2 and 8. I played a little bit of some of the others, like demos of like 3 and 7 and stuff like that. But I've mainly focused most of my time on 2 and 8. 2, I thought was great. It's very old school though, so you have to kind of deal with these like old school tank controls in the game. So you have to kind of use a directional pad. Your character has to go up, and then you have to turn your character. It's a little. It can be kind of off-putting for a lot of people, but especially who are more used to modern controls. But
yeah, it sounds a little daunting.
Yeah, and the camera angles are fixed too. So the game wants to be cinematic, but also at the same time, you can't control the camera. So you have to kind of deal with.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
It is old school, so it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still a really great game. A lot of people really do love that style of survival horror, and you don't really know what's around the corner, which is kind of nice about those fixed camera angles. So I do like that. I like the kind of the element of surprise that those games hold. And yeah, no, I think the environments there, they do a great job at being very creepy, and you're not too overpowered. Like it is literally survival horror. So you have to kind of look around and, along with solving puzzles, like in Eternal Darkness, you have to kind of really conserve your ammo and really have to find a way to, what do you fight or do you flight kind of thing. So it's cool. That's what I like about those.
I got you. And it seems like there's a total difference between what you said about 2 and what you and 8. I mean,
yeah.
Really, did you think that what they did from 2 to 8? I know obviously you might have played the other ones, but they're not maybe as popular. But you started with whatever, and then you worked your way up. Did they do a good job of modernizing and making the game a little different when you got up to 8?
So I love 8. I think 8 is a fantastic game. So yes, I think.
Now, I mean, from what I'm getting from YouTube, that they're loving 8 right now. They're loving 8. There's a ton of gameplay on it.
Yeah, it really was a pretty popular release. First of all, I think the graphics are impeccable. The graphics are some of the best graphics I've seen in a while. Just the level of detail each of these environments have is just stunning. I just love the I love that it's a I actually really like that it's a first-person shooter. The other games are more survival horror kind of third-person shooters, but this game is like you're in the perspective of the character, so it kind of feels more of like a Call of no, I shouldn't say Call of Duty, but but the same perspective as Call of Duty,
Right.
but with more of obviously of like a survival horror edge. But it is definitely more action oriented than the previous games, and there's definitely more. They make it way more cinematic in some of the scenarios
Oh, cool.
that you're in. So there's more cutscenes and stuff like that. But I still think the story was very strong, and the level of exploration in the game too. The game actually really encourages you to kind of stray off the beaten path every once in a while to look see if you can find some secrets. Like you can try to find more ammo. You can try to find these like cool relics that you can sell to the merchant in that game, and it even has a bit of an RPG angle where you can actually buy and upgrade your weapons and stuff like that. And
Oh, wow, that's very cool.
yeah, it's pretty cool. And your character, and you can even like cook some dishes. It's very not the biggest part of the game, but you can kind of improve your character's stats and stuff like that too. So it does have more of an RPG kind of feel than the other games do. So it was pretty cool in that sense. Yeah, not quite as like scary as some of the original games. It's definitely more fast-paced and action-packed, but I still did think they had some really memorable kind of scary moments here and there. Yeah, I really liked it.
Cool. And my last question about that is that would you suggest, because you've played the game,
Yeah.
two different kinds of the game, two different, kind of chapters. I mean, is it okay for you to play 8, go right to 8 without playing 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Yes. I think it would help a little bit if you played 7 actually, but I didn't play 7 because 8 is a direct sequel to actually 7. But you don't really have to know that much about the old games. There is a character from the old games that does pop up in Resident Evil 8. So it does help a little bit to play them, but you can be a newcomer and just literally throw yourself into this game because the game does do a good job at catching you up on what happened in Resident Evil 7 if you just want to skip over and play it. So they do a really good job with that. So yeah, I'd say like you definitely get a little more out of it if you had played some of the originals, but you really don't have to, I think, to enjoy the full experience. Like I think it's a really good game that stands on its own. So.
No, that's great. I just want to know that because I know that there are some games out there that have sequels that have different chapters.
Yeah.
I heard, and just what I've heard, is that the Far Cry series.
Oh yeah.
You really have to go 1, 2, 3, kind of in a row because they do explain it, but sometimes you're like, "What's going on here?"
Yeah.
So you really can't play 3 without playing 2 or 1. Just to kind of get yourself acclimated to the game itself. And maybe they don't have enough to tell you up front about the other chapters to be able to do it. Mm-hmm. That's just what I've heard. I don't know if it's, again, I'm hearing this from YouTubers. So, excuse me, it's either, it's either they're either right or they're wrong. Maybe you can play it, but I'm just trying to tell you what I've heard about that particular series. And some of the series you can't really do that. You have to play the beginning games and then kind of get used to it and then go to the other ones. But that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I wanted to do, Kyle, is I wanted to get into something that we're going to start doing at the end of our episodes. And Kyle's very excited about this.
Yay.
We are going to give you a movie or a TV show or even a video game recommendation, and we are going to basically give you an idea of what that movie or TV show is or a video game is, and we're going to give you a little review, and we're going to say, hey, go out and get it. Go out and get it this weekend. Watch it on this streamer, or watch it on or rent it, get it from somewhere. If you don't have Prime, you got to have something. Netflix. Some of them are on Netflix, some are on HBO Max. So So that's what we're going to do at the end of the episode. So we're coming up in the end of the episode right now. So what I want to do is I want to go right to Kyle. Kyle, let's get your review out, and let's what TV show or movie or video game are you going to review for us this week?
Okay, so I'll do a quick review. I'm going to try because I wanted to talk about two movies in particular, two horror movies that I really think you should watch, just because of how unique they are. But I will warn you, they are not for the squeamish. If you are not a fan of body horror type movies, then you're not going to be the biggest fan of them. But I want to talk about Hellraiser 1 and Hellbound, Hellraiser 2. Which, yes, it has Pinhead. I know those are the Pinhead movies, and you're thinking, "What? Why would you watch those?" Well, I actually really enjoyed them. They were actually a lot better than I even thought they could be. I'd say they were actually kind of in some ways like more elevated than some of the other movies, like the the late Halloween or the mid to late Halloween sequels and like Nightmare on Elm Street, but. It's written by the mind of Clive Barker. He's such a genius author. And the first movie I really liked mainly because of the story and just kind of like how it just took a lot of chances and you didn't really know what to expect. And it literally has to do with this house and this this husband and his wife who he just married, and they have a he brings his daughter too, but that's not her real mother kind of thing, and she kind of has her odds with the mother, but then you find out that the mother's past is literally haunting her. Her ex-boyfriend is coming back to life, and via evil magic, he's basically found the way out of hell to kind of cross the other side. And it's got some very weird, but very unique kind of visual just aesthetic, and it's very grotesque, but the story is very fascinating, and you always really want to see where it goes next. So I definitely recommend, especially the first Hellraiser movie. And it's not a movie where there's a slasher villain that's trying to pick people off, like in Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street. No, it's actually a little more, it's got a little more going on. And Pinhead is actually not the main villain, which is very...
You mean it's not Friday the 13th, part 72?
Yeah, no, it's not Jason
Gotcha.
killing a bunch of teens. There's actually more adults in this movie, actually. It just feels more adult than some of those other...
Gotcha. I just... After a while, you're thinking, okay, I know what this movie's going to be about.
Yeah,
if you sit in the theater watching Friday the 13th, part 4, you kind of know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those movies are so predictable. It's like, it was for like the teenage audience, I feel like. They're like, oh.
I think people were just walking in going, sitting there going, I wonder how they're going to kill him this time.
Yeah, exactly. How's Jason going to come back?
How's Jason going to kill this person this time?
Exactly.
What kind of creativity can they use?
Yeah. Like that's it. It's like you just like your typical series movie. You just like you have your expectations. The movie delivers those exact expectations.
Yeah, exactly. Unbelievable.
Whereas this, I liked it because it's straight off the beaten path, and a lot of the creature, just the effects in general. This came out in like 87, 88 about, and it looked really good for the time. It still holds up really well. The second movie I really liked too, Hellbound, was because it kind of took the narrative further. And while it wasn't quite as strong as the first story-wise, I thought visually and just the imagination was even more so. It kind of had more of a spectacle because you actually get to go see what this movie's version of hell looks like. And I just loved all the different creepy effects going on. And I definitely recommend them if you are trying to look for something a little different, a little off the beaten path, and you haven't seen any of the Hellraiser movies, definitely check it out.
That sounds great. And I believe I saw the first one, but it was a long time ago. And I can't remember exactly when I saw it. I can't remember. Anyway, those are two good ones, and especially for Halloween coming up. It's coming up on Monday, and the weekend is going to be full of regular TV and cable TV full of these horror movies, I'm sure. So that's obvious. It's it's not your regular movie, and I like that. I like the fact that that's what you like to do, and that's what we're going to do here. Is it might be a movie that's not the most popular thing out there, but we're going to recommend it because we like it and we think you should see it, because I think some of them are cult classics, some of them are just regular classics. The one I'm going to talk about, and let's see if everybody can guess which one I'm going to talk about. Everybody knows and I'm not a big horror movie guy, although I've seen lots of horror movies. It's not comedies are the first thing I like to see, but if there's a good horror movie out there, I like to see it. So I was a little bit younger when I first saw this movie. It's a movie from 1980. Let's see. I'm not getting anything from Kyle yet, but I think he knows.
Oh, I know.
Yes, this is my favorite, and I'll tell you why it's my favorite. This is my favorite horror movie of all time. I can watch this over and over and over again, and I can actually see things in a different way every time I see it. And I actually just watched it recently. Probably going to watch it again this weekend. But I see, I was like, wait a minute, I didn't see that last time. Like this different stuff that kind of comes up. Not necessarily in the story, but like in watching the movie itself. Like, wait a minute, I didn't see that. So this movie is called The Shining. Yes, it is my favorite horror movie of all time. It's basically about a family who heads up to an isolated hotel for the winter. The hotel is closed down for the wintertime. Basically other influences that kind of go on. It's Jack Nicholson, and I believe it is Shelley Duvall, and Danny Lloyd and Scatman Crothers are the basic characters. There are some others, but they're kind of like at the beginning, and then they don't show up at all toward the end. What I like about this is Stephen King. Stephen King's my favorite. I've read a lot of his books, and I've seen a ton of his movies. I've seen Christine, and I've seen Cujo. Cujo's not really my favorite, but I've seen those other movies. And this is my favorite, and the reason it's my favorite is because it's a thinker. It's not. I'm trying to figure out whether it is the horror genre, and I think it is. But it's actually logical, and you have to think as you watch the movie. You have to think in this movie, so it's really a different kind of situation, but I love it. It's I like the fact that you have to think about it. There's not a lot of like pop outs that scare you.
Yeah,
but you have to think about what's going on here. And it does have a little bit of a surprise ending.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a surprise ending, but it is, and I think it's Jack Nicholson's best work. Maybe One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest might maybe a little bit better, but this is either the second or third movie that he probably did, I think, and this one is just fabulous. And I like it because it's a thinker. It's not just a horror movie like, Jason going out and just killing people. This is an actual thinker. You have to actually think about this movie. And that's what I like about it. I like the thinkers. I don't mind going out and going, oh yeah, Jason, oh, how many? Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 12. So 12, wait, let's count. 15. How many kids? Wait, there were 16 kids and there's one left? Okay, we're good. So I like it because of that. And so my recommendation is for people to go out. If you haven't seen it, you got to go out and see it. I saw it, and this may age me. I saw it when I was an early teenager. So, and it scared the living daylights out of me. Just because I was an early teenager. It scared the crap out of me because I was an early teenager. Yeah. That's why. But, it was, It's not. It's a thinker, and that's what I like about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely, and I don't, I mean those two movies that you recommended, excellent. Those are fabulous. We're at the end of our episode right now, so what I'd like to do is just kind of mention out there that we are now powered by StreamYard. We're very excited about this new format that we're going to be on.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting. It's really very cool and very excited to see what we can do to the episode to make it even better. Very excited about this format. This is a new format for us. We are actually going to be on some different formats too. So we're still going to be on YouTube. Mm-hmm. I am super excited to see what Kyle brings to the intro to this particular episode. So that should be fun. We're going to be on YouTube. We will be on, I believe I typically stick it on Facebook. And we're going to be on something new. We're actually, and I want the confirmation from Kyle, we're actually going to be on Spotify.
Yes.
Yes, the audio version of our show. Yep, the audio version of our show. We're going to be on Spotify. So wherever you get your podcasts, you should be able to find us. Well, if you got Spotify, everybody has Spotify or iTunes. We might even be able to put ourselves on some other things, but we're checking it out. But definitely Spotify, definitely YouTube, definitely Facebook. And we're looking forward to doing many more episodes on StreamYard and seeing what it can do for us. And want you to comment when you see it on YouTube. Please throw us a comment. We always want to get better. So, tell us what you want us to talk about. We certainly want to hear from you. We get better that way, and we certainly want to know what you want us to talk about. I think that's it. We do have some other shows that are out there. Please remember the Sports Blitz with me and Robbie. We're going to be recording relatively soon. I think maybe next week, I'm not sure. But I know that they just did a new On the Couch talking sports. You got to see this one because you got to check out what Robbie does when Kyle's talking. You got to check it out. It's awesome. So it's On the Couch talking sports. They have over 300 episodes made. So you don't have to watch all 300 at once.
That's too much. Yeah, no,
that's way too much. But definitely watch the latest episode of On the Couch Talking Sports. That's fabulous. That's with Kyle and Robbie, and I think that's it. I think that's all we got. So please comment and hit the bell and subscribe to us. And I'm Doug. That's Kyle. We had a great time tonight. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time on Marvel at the Movies with Doug and Kyle.
See you guys.
See you later.
Alucard, what is your business here?
I've come to put an end to this.
Still befriending mortals. I'll not ask you to return to our side, but I demand you cease your attack.
I will not.
You shall regret those words. We will meet again.
What?